Rafael Benitez's poisonous tenure at Everton was called to an end in January of 2022, much to the delight of the Everton faithful. It had been a torrid half a season and the Toffees were languishing at the bottom of the table and falling fast. Fortunately, the arrival of Frank Lampard managed to turn the tide and grab some huge victories which secured survival and Premier League football at Goodison Park next season. It does beg the question, however, as to whether Benitez is the worst Everton manager ever, all things considered. Hopefully by the end of this video, it's a question we aim to have answered. For this unfortunate title, there are three outstanding candidates. Naturally, one would look towards the bottom of the win percentage table and go from there. That therefore leaves Rafa Benitez, Mike Walker and Walter Smith, who have each overseen periods that the club would rather forget. Context for our three candidates is imperative, however. Mike Walker is probably the manager who has come closest to taking the Toffees down in recent years, with only a 3-2 win on the final day against Wimbledon after being 2-0 down, saving the Blues. Hoping to give him a full season following, his terrible start to the 1994-95 season meant he was sacked, with his replacement Joe Royle navigating the side to their most recent major honour. Next up is Walter Smith, who actually was at the helm for a staggering 168 games. Unfortunately for him, false promises regarding transfers marred his stint, and he oversaw the sale of many of Everton's prized assets to balance the books. 3 seasons in the bottom half and a brief flirtation with relegation saw him sacked and replaced by David Moyes. And finally, the man who needs no introduction as his horrors still sit fresh in the minds of Evertonians, Rafael Benitez. The Spaniard joined Everton despite vocal condemnation from fans and replaced Carlo Ancelotti, who had departed for Real Madrid earlier in the summer. The manager who had formerly led Liverpool to Champions League glory oversaw a terrible winless run, and many would argue he had well overstayed his welcome. He was sacked in January of this year. To reach a conclusive answer, a set of guidelines for judging just how bad a manager has actually been must be outlined. Obviously, their actual points per game and win percentage is important, but their actions throughout their tenure and the lasting impact they had on the club must also be considered, alongside any important signings they may have made and any external struggles they faced which may have helped or hindered them. Walker does boast the worst win percentage of any Everton manager ever, with a measly 17.1%, whereas Smith and Benitez are only 0.3% apart, with the Spaniard offering the best the bunch has to offer, with a still depressing 31.8% win rate. His points percentage, however, is worse than Smith's, as his 39.4 point percentage is dwarfed by the 41.5 point percentage of Smith. Again, Walker sits alone at the bottom with just 27.6. So what does this mean? Essentially, it paints the picture that statistically Mike Walker is clearly the worst Everton manager ever. However, his side was undoubtedly worse than that of Benitez's, as the season prior to his appointment they had finished 13th compared to 10th under Ancelotti in the 2020-21 season. Smith also saw many of his better players sold behind his back, with Duncan Ferguson, Franny Jeffers, Michael Ball, Marco Materazzi, Don Hutchinson and many more all sold, underpinning what was a rocky time in Everton's history and a very tough time to be manager. Benitez actually oversaw one of the worst periods of form in Everton's entire history, winning just 1 league game out of 13, a run that stretched across 4 months. The start to the season that saw Walker lose his job was similarly terrible, as it took him 12 matches to get his first win. Signings were somewhat important, however, as despite his terrible time at Goodison, Walker recruited Duncan Ferguson, Anders Limpar and Daniel Amokachi. Benitez, on the other hand, invested in Andros Townsend and Damari Gray due to limited funds. The state that Walker and Smith left the club in, however, is what really damns Benitez and drags him down towards the former's miserable stats, as foundations were still in place for the club to go on to win an FA Cup the season Walker was sacked, and for David Moyes to build his squad that would see him stay for a further 11 years. Benitez, on the other hand, forced out 2 of the club's main creative outlets in James Rodriguez and Luca Dean, allowing his pettiness to create a toxic atmosphere that travelled into the stands. Only when Lampard joined was he able to rebuild this relationship and steer the team to safety. So, statistically it is impossible to look past Mike Walker for the mantle of worst Everton manager of all time. However, Rafa Benitez will always be remembered with more contempt. His connections with the other half of Merseyside, his stubbornness and arrogance, and his naivety and outdated tactics all combined to push Everton to the brink, and therefore many will regard him as Everton's worst ever manager. Hopefully under Lampard, a new era will dawn at Everton and Farhad Moshiri can refrain from having to make any more decisions that could destroy the club, just like the one he made to hire Benitez in the first place. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy, please like and subscribe for more content. If you have any ideas for future videos, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below.